Yeah.
Did that work, Daniel?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Military Alumni Panel hosted by Sport and Exercise Psychology. I am Daniel, the president. I'm joined with Sarah, the treasurer, Secretary Robert, and event coordinator David. Um, our vice president Jeremy and our PR chair Genevieve will be joining us later. So we'll see. We'll love to get a picture of us at the end with all of our cameras on, hopefully. Um, but really, thank you. I wanted to thank everybody for being here, taking time out of their day to be here, and especially our speakers. Very thankful that you guys took out time. And it's a very special panel. Not only do they all work with military personnel, but they are alumni of the Sport and Exercise Master's Program here at Long Beach State. So special one. This is going to be a good one. We're happy to have you guys here. And again, very thankful. Before we get started, um, the secretary Robert had put a couple questions into the chat just to guide you guys, just so we can get an understanding of what questions are being asked, and if you guys have any other questions, more than welcome to ask them. And if you guys can either send them through the chat where he'll be moderating, or you can unmute yourself as well. That's completely okay. So without further ado, we'll start with our panelists, and let's start with Matthew. Maybe we can then go to Taylor and then Joe at the end. So maybe names, where you reside, work, and your year of graduation from the SEP program.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel, for having me. It's good to see Taylor and Joe again. But yeah, my name's Matt. I go by Matt. I am right now in Pensacola, Florida. So that's on the Panhandle. I'm like 20 minutes from the Alabama border. And I graduated in 2019.
Taylor, if you will, please.
Sorry, I'm trying to use I haven't used my iPad because my internet was not connected with my laptop, so it's not liking Zoom. Bear with me. Okay. My name is Taylor. I work at Fort Carson in Colorado. And then I graduated from the Sport and Exercise Psych program in 2022. Yeah, 2022.
Hey y'all. My name is Joanny, Joe for short. I am over at Fort Moore, previously known as Fort Benning. It is in Columbus, Georgia, so somewhere nobody knows of, but I am on the border of Alabama and Georgia, like 3 hours from Matt, actually. And I graduated in 2020.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So that will lead us to our first question, which is, what is the title of your current position, and what does a typical day's work look like?
So my title is a cognitive performance specialist. It's very similar to it's just a mental performance coach. I think it's just the way that the contract's written up, and how kind of like military personnel kind of know us a little bit better. I think that I know at my job, and then at some like special operations jobs, that's what the title is. It's cognitive performance specialist. It's no different than probably what you're thinking as far as like a performance psychology consultant or mental performance coach. So that's the current position. I work with the Air Force on a naval installation. So it's a little peculiar, but there's a small Air Force contingent here in a schoolhouse. So these are all young officers that just came out of school, or ROTC or Air Force Academy, that are training to be, specifically at my location, backseaters. So this is the Navy example, but if you guys watch Top Gun, not Maverick, but Goose. So I work with the Gooses of the Air Force. And a kind of typical day is it changes quite a bit. I mean, there's baked into the schoolhouse. Like there are some like required like academics where like I'm standing up front like teaching different like mental skills or psychoeducation, but primarily day to day is very different. We have this like appointment system called Calendly, so people will schedule like one-on-one consults with me, or if they want to do like an assessment on this technology machine we have called SNEP, they'll do that. But if not, I'm kind of just hanging out in my office waiting for people to walk in, or going into like the weight room, because I work with strength coaches and a dietitian, and I'll just hang out in the weight room and I get to know the students, ask, hey, how'd your sim go? How'd your flight go? And kind of start having conversations from there pertaining to more of like mental skills training or whatever it may be. But that's a long way of saying it. Like it changes from day to day.
I would say we're supposed to go into each one, right? Or do you want to do questions after each one, or we're just going one by one person?
Yeah, we could go each person. Yeah.
Okay. I kind of similarly to Matt, my day-to-day really varies. I mean, we've had recently our the brigade that I'm embedded in. Oh, my current title is Master Resilience Trainer Performance Expert. That is basically, it combines the fact that the job that we have kind of has two groups in terms of resilience and performance curriculum that we use. And so one side of the house, we do master resilience training, which is where we train soldiers to then go and train other people. And then the performance expert part of that is where we do the performance work separate from the MRT courses. But a typical day work could vary. My brigade just got back from a large training exercise, and so we did a lot of trainings with them where they needed mass kind of briefs, and so I spoke in front of a group of like 300 to 400 at a time, and then it also could be and that I just kind of teaching them about communication and what that looks like coming back. So it could be something like a quick skill with a large group. It could be one-on-ones. And then it could also be kind of in between sizes. So yesterday I did one training about 40 with people that were soldiers that were new to the brigade, and giving them some resources on mindset. And then in the afternoon, I worked with the brigade to have kind of a course for the women in the brigade to be able to network with each other and mentor each other. And the brigade commander and brigade command sergeant major were there and supporting that. And so it kind of looks varying in terms of like, we go to training meetings, we do all sorts of different things. It really varies day to day, and it varies the size, the location, the level of leadership that we work with.
So the same job title as Taylor, very similar to what Matt does. You will notice a common theme working with the military. Our day-to-day always looks different. So we're never like our days don't look the same. There might be trainings that are very similar, but for the most part, like we have to be very flexible in the job in itself. But I work at a TRADOC, so what that just means that is like a big training site. So I do work a lot primarily with OSIT, which is one site unit training. So I work with basic trainees, and they are infantry, so like that's kind of their specialty. So I go out there training events and I help teach mental skills. So I can teach between one company has at least max 250, so anywhere between 150 to 250 at a time. But I do have like Matt remembers. So yeah, we do a lot of like big classes where we're teaching mental skills and teaching them how they can like be more confident, composed, and focused when it matters most, while they're shooting, getting their targets, or while they're throwing hand grenades. But that isn't just the limit of what I do. I also work close with drill sergeants. We have, because it's a school site, we also have officer candidate schools. So I work with officers as well. I do PT training sometimes where we have obstacle courses where they're asking for mental skill stations to kind of add that mental element and that like pressure to see how they perform in those moments. And yeah, it looks different every day. So it depends on the day and what my schedule allots me to do. I like to be double to triple booked. So some days I'll start my day with trainees, and at the end of the day, I'm sitting down with their command team and helping the cadre, essentially is what we refer to them as, making sure that they're having a cohesive unit, that they're not burnt out, and just making sure that like they are all performing optimally, essentially. But that's it.
Great. No, that's awesome. Thank you so much. We'll hop to the next question, which is what relevant experiences prepared you for your current position and how did the SEP program contribute to that success?
Yeah, I think every different place that I've been has definitely like I've learned something new or taken something from it, and like that's no surprise, right? So I like I'll go back to like the Long Beach State, but like I got an internship at IMG after I graduated. I remember feeling like I was prepared, and then came into that. I was like, wait, there's another like standard or another level that you have to get to, and like I was working with like younger kids, so you couldn't just like give the information. Like they're gonna fall asleep. They don't care. Like you need to make it fun. They would call it like edutainment. Like you need to be a good presenter. So I felt like there I learned like, hey, there's like ways that you can get the audience interested in what you're saying outside of changing the content. Like you can change the way you deliver it. You have to like meet them where they're at. You have to vary your tone. You have to speed up and then slow down, emphasize certain things. Like, so I feel like I learned a lot like of that there. And then I worked at in the same position that Taylor and Joe are at up in Washington, where I feel like I learned how to be a part of a team and like work together and do more co-teaching. At Long Beach, I never really did that. It was more kind of just my own thing. So working with the team, like co-teaching, using other people's like, because everyone has their own style of how they present and how they teach, and being able to like pick and choose and like, hey, I really like how they do that there. And not necessarily like being someone I'm not, but like how can I make what they do very well my own. So I feel like I grabbed a lot from there. But specifically at Long Beach, obviously like the education of the science and the evidence based, and knowing what you're talking about helps with confidence and helps you speak. If you don't know what you're talking about, you don't have like a good grasp of it, it's going to be tough to be a good presenter and speak confidently. But also in that, I remember I got a lot of hours when I was at Long Beach. Like any opportunity that there was, like I did high school volleyball, I did club volleyball, I did rowing, I did lacrosse for a very small period of time. But just getting in those reps and just getting in front of athletes, people, and speaking and getting comfortable doing that, I feel like really set me up for like then going to IMG, then going to JBLM, and then where I'm at now, and just like being able to bring a little bit at every single portion.
I think kind of similarly to Matt, I think a lot of us are probably going to have like similar type tracks that we followed. I will say one experience that I had, and I was very fortunate to do so, was actually, and I was very excited to see that Joe and Matt were the ones who were on this call. They were very, very helpful in me. Not only Joe, I met prior to even getting into the master's program, and she kind of took me under her wing that way. And then Matt, also, I was able to go and actually see the team at JBLM and kind of took me around. And so being able to be exposed to not only networking with alumni and actually like learning that people will help you, like you just have to ask for the information and the guidance. And so that was a really valuable thing that I learned, where now I really enjoy the outreach with other people. And that's a really big part of our job as well, is when you go to other trainings where you can go to other sites and meet people from other teams, is keeping those connections with people and learning from them. And so I think that the networking aspect of that was really valuable in helping with my current position, because as Matt said, it is a team environment. And so having people skills is really important, especially when working with the military, because you're the civilian there. And a lot of the times they just see people who see them as a number and, as the soldier. And I think having us there, we have the unique opportunity to show them that we care about their goals, their, unique characteristics and personalities, and their performances and things like that. And so being able to connect with them is something that's something that I use every day in my job now. In terms of what I did at the SEP program, I did work a little bit with the ROTC program. So that was helpful. I kind of got a unique experience in that I was in the SEP program during COVID. So unfortunately, the FaceTime that I got with people was lower than the average of like other people coming through the classes, as everyone at that time was, because we weren't able to see athletes. And so I think for me, learning to get opportunities where you had like professional developments, so things like, doing reading and getting into actually learning the content is really valuable. It's something that we have to do in our jobs all the time, is where peers will say like, oh, I read this book on feedback, or I read this book on mindset, or I read this book on flow, or things like that. And then going and reading that on your own and learning, and then turning that into a class to be able to teach. That has been really valuable. And then also I remember one of the times we recorded one of my sessions where we watched back what I did and then got feedback from one of the professors. And that's something that we do in our job where I don't know that I've ever done a training where I didn't have at least one coworker come with and at least sit in the back and give me feedback afterward. Good, bad, we call it sustains and improves. And that's something that really helped me too, was to learn how to take feedback and to learn how helpful that can be, so that now in my job, I ask for people to come and watch me teach, because it is such a collaborative space, at least in this position.
Yeah, I would agree with Taylor. I think the biggest thing that prepared me too is being able to ask those questions that reach out to your network. The program does a really good job of making sure that, like, even though we're not doing as much as collaborative work as we do on the job when we were in the program, a lot of it was just like trusting in like, hey, like, we have these connections. How can we continue these networks? How can we ask these questions? Taylor and I spoke a lot regarding the program, regarding this job too. When I was looking at the workforce, I called Matt immediately. I said, hey, like, even that first question, what does your day-to-day look like? And when he said it looks different every day, I found out real quick that it did look different every day. And I came like right in the middle. So like my also experience got cut a little short. My last semester was COVID, but I did learn a lot while in the program, of just being able to like, I was able to work with ballet. So I did ballet workshops. I worked with a soccer youth summer group at one point. Like, just being able to pull on, I worked with track and field on campus. And like, that was the first time that I worked with anywhere over 100 athletes, right? So just learning like what was my comfort zone. I learned really quickly that, like, especially when I was in this program, I didn't want to go my thesis route. But Dr. Madrigal was very much like, hey, I believe in you. I'll let you do what you want, but like, you're capable. And I think even just being able to like expose yourself to things that might be a little scary or like worrisome, and just being able to just like get comfortable with the uncomfortable is like a big component. And I think that if you're able to take advantage of all the program has to offer, like, it has come a long way, right? Like, even the syllabus, the curriculum is helping you be prepared for CMPC. You being able to like expose yourself to maybe athletics that you like, teams that you would never want to work with or thought you'd want to work with, you'd learn something from it. And I think from that program, I learned a lot about like throwing myself into different opportunities just to like get that exposure. But yeah, a lot of my experience, like even how research heavy the program is, it's been very helpful. Because when you work with especially the military population, it's so easy for them to like sense bullshit and they won't listen to it. So like, if you go up there and you don't know what you're talking about, and like you don't show, like how Taylor was saying, that you don't show that you care about the soldier as a person, you just see them as a number, they'll just write you off because you're just another civilian that's just there to check the block, essentially, as they say, and just move along. So I think a lot of the things that I've experienced, just not only in that position, but like even in school, is just how to be relatable, how to build that rapport, how to show that you care, but also be effective. I think is a big game changer. So just being able to take advantage of a lot from that, and that network that you start building from the program, not just with the people that you went to school with, not just a cohort that you have, but just even reaching out to those that are incoming or those that are out and already out in the field, contributed to a lot of my success anyway.
No, yeah, absolutely. I think anybody that goes through this program understands how research heavy it is, right? And how much reading there is to do. But at the end, it really does help you. And I think that's what I'm personally finding out. And just the importance of keeping that peer relationship, right? It's keeping that network to help you with your career. So thank you for that. We'll move on to the next question, which is what are some standards or rules specific to your position that must be followed? So, I mean, I know, working with the military, there's some strict rules for the cadets, right? For the soldiers and all. What are some standards that you guys might be upheld to?
I'm not exactly sure what like specific to like actual rules that are in place, like for our job from like our company or just like as cognitive performance specialists. Could you give me just a
Yeah,
little bit
in your
more
company.
context?
Yeah, in your company.
So this will, if you end up getting to the military, more likely than not, I can't think of, at least at first, you're going to be a military contractor. So what that means is that you work for a company that want to bid for the contract to provide the service to the military. So we don't work for the military, like we don't work for the Army, we don't work for the Air Force. We work with them and provide a service. So I guess I don't want to steal, like basically you're gonna have to like weirdly enough, you have to, even though you're a salary, you have to log your hours every single day. So you have to like work, like tell the government that you worked 8 hours, you worked however many hours you actually worked that day, you have to log it every single day, or else like you kind of get in trouble. So that's like a really like interesting like portion of working with the military and getting into like contract work. Specifically for my position, what our company has us do, or I guess just the program is, since we're collecting data, because the idea is that the Air Force officers come in and this is their first duty station, right? And they have this access to the human performance team. Well, they want to collect data on the usage, and also we do some baseline assessments for them throughout their time there. And then this program is not only at the undergraduate site, which I'm at, but it's at the graduate, it's at the what they call basic courses. So like you get to your specific aircraft, so like F-35B course, and then at the actual FTU, which is formal training unit. I say all that because we need to de-identify all their information. So PII is a big thing in my company. So if I have somebody's squat max, I can't have their name next to that. So we have to de-identify and give them a unique code to make, and then insert that in and send it up to the company of like, this is where they're at, and they're going to track that throughout their career. So I guess it's two rules and standards from the two different positions that I can kind of think of that are unique.
Taylor, Joe, did you guys want to elaborate maybe on that?
Yeah, I think it is being a contractor is there are some different obligations that come with that. I would say, especially when it comes to like travel or things like that, there's a lot of approvals that have to be made prior to being able to do those things. We have to get a lot of approvals for being able to be at certain locations. So like I've gone out to a training site and it required like it to go up the chain of command. So I had to get a request from the military personnel who were requesting me. They had to send that to my my performance center manager, who then sent it up to our higher ups, who then sent it back down to get signatures and then send it back up. And that was just for me to go out for one day. And so that being said, like you do have to be kind of on top of it in terms of the paperwork that needs to get done for for approvals for things and making sure that you're going through all of those. And so like I wouldn't just meet since I work with infantry as well, I wouldn't just talk to a sergeant who says, oh, come out to the range with us, and I just show up at the range. It's just you do have to go through the certain correct routes for that to make sure that you are accounted for and that you're not somewhere that you're not supposed to be, because military sites, sometimes there are a lot of places where like civilians could not go, and you have to make sure you are not accidentally going to that area or anything like that. You have to just make sure that everything is in place, kind of just doing all of your due diligence. That's all I could think of for that. I will say the one thing I forgot for the last one to add is looking into the Bickerstaff program. I know that that's off topic, but for that was something that I did to help me prepare, and I forgot to mention it. But the Bickerstaff Academic Center is something I recommend. But other than that, in terms of standards or rules, other than that, it's primarily working with, you don't have to really follow the chain of command necessarily as a civilian, but you do have to follow pretty strict rules of professionalism in terms of like following how they act in meetings and things like that, so that you're blending in and being representing the company well.
I'll add also for the like as a contractor, because it's not like guaranteed that the military or the army is going to stay with the contract, like what Matt was mentioning earlier with the data collection, like that's really big for us. So we have to like constantly collect data and just see like what are we teaching, is it effective, and continuously prove why we should be part of the military. The military is trying to like they're doing a great job in this incentive of like making sure they take a holistic approach, and they know the importance of that mental performance aspect. So just being able to like constantly record like, okay, I'm going out to these trainings, this is what I did here, this was the impact of it, this is if it was effective or not. So like that is something interesting when thinking about entering the contracting world. I mean, I will say I don't worry about my position, but like it's not, they'll tell you like, well, it's not guaranteed, like we're still up for a bidding XYZ, but like the proof is in the pudding, and we do a lot of work. We're a big team. Regardless of what contract you're in, there's multiple contracts that are catered to different populations in the military. So we're all just really trying to like provide that data. So what you're experiencing, even like in grad school right now, just like, okay, what am I doing when I'm out consulting like this team? Like, how is this like helpful? And you're seeing it and you're writing it down for your hours. That's essentially kind of like what we do as contractors. We're constantly keeping a paper trail of like what we're doing, the populations we work with. We do not identify specific people, but like identifying units is okay, just because you're not name dropping or anything. And I would also add like the non like spoken standard and rule, I think is also like just knowing like military culture and respecting it. So I think that I speak for Taylor, Matt, and I, like when we all started, that's kind of some of the stuff that we were broken down, right? Like try not to put your hands in your pockets because soldiers aren't allowed to, right? Like there's little things in the culture that you try to be that you should be aware of, so you can respect it and be able to still work with that population and not bring in like the, I don't know, like those habits that we have from working with athletics, essentially.
Yeah, thank you for that, because I know a lot of the times, I mean, we have our standards and ethics, right, that are put on by the field. But addition to that, we also have other settings that have roles on us. So thank you for that. Our next question, what are some challenges you overcame, and are there still some challenges you hope to overcome?
Yeah, so I mean, challenges overcame, like, I mean, a ton of them. I think if you're just looking more generally, like where I was at in my coaching or wherever, consulting, however you view the position, like at school, like I look back on it and I cringe now. And I'm sure Joe and Taylor probably have a very similar, like, not so fond memory. Like, but I think that's like part of the process. Like you're going to do your best. And I think you can name a bunch of things. Like you're going to get better over time. That delivery is going to get better over time, and how you interact and how you break the code of this like theoretical basis of this, like how can I make it more digestible? Like, you're going to fall on your face. You're going to have a brief that you're like reading the room, like nobody cares like what I am saying right now, or they're not picking up what I'm putting down. Maybe you're going to say something wrong. Maybe at least in the military, like Joe said, like I've definitely had people be like, I don't necessarily agree with what you're saying, like, or like, I don't believe that, or I don't think this is helpful. And how you react to it one time versus like, okay, well, how can I react to it better the next time? Like, I hate to be so general. There's a ton of challenges that I overcame. I think the most recent one, I know in my previous positions, it was much more focused on group, like psychoeducation, like group instruction. So working with a large number of people, or at least just like more than two, like in a group. So you're just like putting out information. In my current role, it's a lot more one-on-one. I teach one class once every 3 weeks to like 20 students before they class up. And the rest of it is like more one-on-one talking, which wasn't necessarily something that I was comfortable with coming out. Like I hadn't sharpened that tool like very much. So, the sports psych program obviously gives you that basis of like, all right, this is how it should go. You should not be talking the entire time. You should be asking questions, getting background, but do it. It's a little bit uncomfortable. So, I'm still overcoming challenges. I'm still getting better. There's still better ways to do it. But those are the ones that kind of like jump out at me in recent memory.
I think one challenge that I can think of, and I don't know, Matt and Joe might be able to relate to this, but with the military population, sometimes what they expect from you in a training can be different than what you prepared for. And so there's times where I've had an experience where I was told my role was to be observing culture in a talk of, like I said, like 300 soldiers sitting there. And when I got there, the CSM that was there, that he actually wanted me on stage with him there. So, it's it's one of those things where you just have to be prepared for anything. And so that's one of the things that my coworkers we've all kind of been learning, the people who came in at the same time as myself, and learning from those who have been at the site for longer, is to come prepared for more than you were asked to do, just because you'd rather be over prepared in this setting, because with the military, being prepared is really important. And so usually, even if you're coming in where they say, okay, well, you can just sit in on this, I've learned to be prepared to give feedback if I need to, if they ask, or give insight, and so come prepared on the topic. And so I think that was a challenge where, especially when it is such a large setting, being in front of that many people can be intimidating. And so making sure that you're over prepared is something that I've learned to do. And I think that's just because their schedules change so often. It's not intentional, but they could find something out that needs to be done right before they need it to be done. And so that's something where you just have to be able to be adaptable to do what they need, and still do that in a way that you're able to be effective. A challenge I'm still hoping to overcome, I think, being newer to the contract, I think I still struggle a little bit with imposter syndrome. It is hard when you have a full bird colonel pausing a meeting to ask your opinion on something, and everyone turns and looks at you, and you're like, I don't know why you're asking me, like what I think about this. And then you have to realize what you bring to the table is unique to what they hear on a day-to-day basis. And so that's a challenge I'm still working on, is to understand how valuable what we bring can be sometimes. And so I think, being kind of fresh out of grad school, to me, sometimes it's hard to think, well, like, I'm new, and what, I'm still learning. And so it's hard to think that like they would want to learn from me. And so that's something that I'm still working on, is to be able to go into a room confidently and say, they really do take a lot away from this, and it really does help them. And so being able to be confident in that delivery of that is something that, I'm trying to improve on every time I teach, and every time I interact with a new group.
Yeah, that imposter syndrome is so real. When you get out of grad school specifically too. Just because honestly, like you love what you do, so it's like you want to be perfect, like you want to make sure that that comes out. And I think that that's also a challenge that I struggled with when I was in grad school and when I went to work with the military. But I think one of the challenges I feel like I've overcome to a certain extent is like even that like public speaking. I used to hate it so much, like even defending my thesis and all that, like it was awful. And I remember going out and then just being told 5 minutes before a brief, like, well, Joe, you've observed this like twice. You should teach it. And it's not that I didn't know what to teach. I was just like, what I do. So I think that that was something that I kind of like worked through a lot, is just like being able to, because then I was able to teach a 250 with no problem. And then I got a class of 10 and I was like, what do I do? So like it was like a learning progress, because it's like you don't always know the population you're going to receive. But now I'm like, I mean, I was an obnoxious student, so now I'm an obnoxious performance expert. So it's been great. But I think that one thing that I'm still overcoming is just the population. You really do have to be flexible. And like Taylor said, you could have a full bird colonel in your class and you can be teaching, like I taught to DENTAC, which is like dental students in the army, you know? So it's like you never know who you're going to get. And I think that every time that I teach a new population, it's always a challenge that I'm overcoming, because it is very easy to get comfortable and content in like the populations you teach. I can go up to basic trainees and give a brief, no problem, like no matter which training event. And then I could get thrown into like a spousal training where I'm teaching spouses and stuff like that. And then I'm just like, okay, who are these people? How do I relate to them? I don't know what to do. So it is a lot of flexibility. So there's always a new challenge to experience, especially working in the military. So just being like over prepared, how Taylor mentioned, but also just like being open to learning from those different, like Matt said, every time you go out there's still briefs that I could have taught like 20 times and then I'll come out of it and I'm like, that wasn't my best. Right. So just being able to like be open to feedback and criticism, I think is also very difficult, because even though in the program you get feedback from the professors, you might get some feedback from your peers, but like especially when you're out there and you're getting feedback from your colleagues, you're like, oh, they know what they're talking about, so am I going to sound like an idiot while I'm speaking, right? So like always also like just learning how to be one flexible but give yourself grace, because obviously we know our stuff. It's just we're always learning how to deliver it. I cringe thinking about my brief, like my when I used to consult track and field, like it was terrible. My imagery scripts were, I'm not gonna say the word, but they were terrible. They were trash. And now, like, I feel like there's so much learning that has happened over the years, and there's still so much I need to learn. So just being open to the fact that we don't know everything, but like we all do things differently. We all have a different style. We all are effective in a specific way, but there's always a way to be more effective. I don't think that there's ever going to be a time that there's not a challenge that I'm going to face or have to like deal with. But I mean, I think that there's a difference in our approach. And I feel like when I first came out of grad school, I was a little bit more timid, where now I was like, I accept those challenges because I know that'll make me better for whatever population I decide to stay with or like expand towards.
Great. No, thank you. I know I feel that a lot now. I know it's just gonna make me better. And no, thank you so much. That was great. I'm gonna move on to the next question quickly. Um, what are some of your favorite parts and or responsibilities of your current position?
So I really enjoy in this position that we get to do what they call cognitive training. I don't know how many people have taken motor control and learning at Long Beach. If you were there in undergrad, you probably did. But it's kind of more perception action training, or trying to build some of the more cognitive skills, maybe like reaction time or short-term memory expansion into what they actually do. So we'll use the weight room in order to be a stimulant in order to like change someone's like energy activation or arousal level, right? Because obviously in the aircraft, their beats per minute or energy activation is gonna be a lot greater. So we're trying to get them we use the weight room, whether it be like a back squat or something like that, to get their heart rate up. And then we'll create and design tasks that try to simulate what they're going to be doing in the aircraft. Not to say that this is in any way supposed to be like in place of them actually doing that and getting practice. Certainly not. But if we can highlight, hey, like a lot of what they struggle with is task saturation. They have to do a lot of different things and shift their attention to these different tasks all within a very short period of time. So if I can replicate some of that in this strength conditioning setting, in this lower threat environment, in the state in which they're probably going to be experiencing that, like having to do that task, then we're just getting better and more comfortable. And the more specific and the closer I can get to the actual task they're doing, there's more research to show that that's actually is going to be a positive transfer. If I'm just doing something that has nothing to do with the task on an iPad and then they're in an aircraft, like that, there's much less evidence to show that that's going to transfer. But if I can actually get them looking at their cockpit and those dials are changing, and I'm, giving them radio calls that they'll actually get in their sim while having them do another task, then there's a little bit more. So that's something that I hadn't done in my previous positions. That's a big emphasis of the program, that I enjoy being in a weight room. That's just like more like chill environment. And I enjoy using, because when I was at Long Beach, I was a graduate assistant for the undergrad motor control and learning. So taking some of the knowledge I had prior and like incorporating that into performance psychology and kind of where that overlap kind of exists has been really, really fun. And I've enjoyed it.
I think for me, one of the things is I hear a lot of people, and especially even in the same company where they speak, and they're really, really heavy, like where Matt is like really heavy on those performance skills, and that's like really their passion. And for me, sometimes it's intimidating because I'm like, my passion is like really the one-on-ones and like somebody being able to just walk into my office and like my office is in a COF, which is essentially like where they're at day to day, and kind of at the ground level with the soldiers there. And so having them be able to walk into my office and just like, kind of word vomit out all of their stress and have me be able to give them a practical tool. I think for me, that's where I feel that like kind of the same thing that Matt was saying, where like being able to be in the weight room, like that's where I get that for me is being able to give that person space that they didn't potentially have before. I think the military doesn't give them a whole lot of spaces to explain what's going on in their lives without having to be in a clinical setting. They kind of either have to be in an extreme situation or they don't get to talk about it at all. And so being able to be that kind of space for them. And not only that, but also in discussions, I tend to, and I like that we have the opportunity to do this where you can choose to go and teach in terms of really like more content heavy, or you can teach where you're just leading a discussion and seeing where it goes and giving them tools in the moment. And I really like being able to do that, where I can give them the space to discuss things that they maybe don't get to, which is like maybe share values or beliefs, or they get to talk about culture in their unit that they don't get to. And then they learn things from each other and learn how to support each other more effectively. And so that's where I get that. But I think something that one of my favorite parts about it in general is that everybody can have a different passion. I think that's a very unique part of the military setting, where somebody could be really performance focused. Somebody could be really like we have a lot of coworkers who are very like Brene Brown focused, which is not it's like different than the performance setting, but it's still really valuable things you can teach them. So I appreciate the autonomy that we get to be able to dive into what we're passionate about, so that we can really be effective in that way and kind of interpret what they need from us in a way that that suits what we're most effective at, or what we bring to the table.
it's always so hard for me to describe like what my responsibilities are without getting into like a lot of army terms. But I'm and we love acronyms apparently in the military, so that's a lot of that. But I'm a POC, which is a point of contact for 2 battalions, and battalions have like 5 companies each, and they're made up of like 15 to 16 drill sergeants each, command team, 3 officers, and then like I said, 150 to 250 trainees, and I work with all of them. So one of my things, so we work with a lot of different populations throughout Fort Moore, but I am in our base, we have like split teams. So we have like a main post team, an OSIT team, which is who I work with, basic trainees, and then TAPC, which is tactical athletic performance. But I am very much in the training sites, and I think that what that has been my passion is the closest thing I have to working with athletics. So I get to go out to all these training events, and yeah, I'll give my like brief to like the masses, but then I hang around training events and I give more one-on-one where trainees come up to me, drill sergeants come up to me and they're like, hey, I'm struggling with XYZ. What are some things I can work on? So whether it's like performance anxiety or them being distracted with missing home or them just like not enjoying the different, because every company has a different culture. So I'm always like dealing with or working through different challenges in each. And I think that for me anyway, like that has been my passion working in the military, is in that trade-off, is that I get to be one-on-one with these trainees and the drill sergeants. And I think that my favorite part of the job is that because I work with this population and like majority are infantry, they're not sold on what we do, especially drill sergeants who have been deployed in the past. And you come in and you're like, hey, like I'm a teacher, trainees mental skills, and they're like, that's for the weak. I didn't need that when I was in Afghanistan. So my favorite part of the job is being able to take those people and get them bought in. And I think that like going into like the challenges I've experienced when I first started the job, the minute they shut me down, I was like, all right, hands off. Where like now I kind of learned the language, I've learned how to like banter, and I learned how to like get them to understand what we do, and like also like learning that not to like just, you know, feel defeated and stay there. Like, okay, what can I do to get there? Because sometimes it takes again, more military terms, it takes a whole cycle. So basic training and AIT, trainees do their basic training, which is 10 weeks, and then they stay for another 11 to 12 weeks to like be more to learn more of the specifics of their MOS, which is infantry, like more of like their actual job in the military. And so like I'm with them throughout 22 weeks, and I've had companies that never even worked with us within the battalion that now, because I had one drill sergeant that was in a different company and he saw the difference that we did, I was brought on to another one. So just being able to like be more persistent and just being like, hey, like what we do matters and it works. And like, as long as I believe in it, like it's so much easier for me to get that buy-in. So I think that me being in a POC position has been very like, it was meant for me because I love to be where I'm not supposed to be. I love being where they don't want me because eventually they'll be begging for it. And that's my tidbit.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We're gonna move on to the last question. This one, just for time's sake. What led you to pursue a career with military personnel, and are there any aspirations in or out of this setting?
Being completely honest, necessity. If I would have had my choice, I would have went into sport. Unfortunately, like didn't work out. So I did that internship after graduate school, and like my hope was like, hey, I'm gonna go do this internship, and I'm gonna get a job, and I'm gonna be at IMG for a while. I didn't end up working out, so it's like, all right, what's the next thing? The Magellan Federal, the company that with Master Resilience Trainer Performance Experts that both Joe and Taylor work for, like they hire a lot of people straight out of school, and it's an awesome program to kind of get into, and that's where I ended up going. Now being in it with the military, like I see myself staying within the military for like a ton of reasons. Not only like it's super rewarding, you're working with actual, like an athlete, I say it all the time, athlete might feel like it's life or death at the free throw line with 1 second, but like at some point for a lot of these like military personnel, like it might be life or death, right? So you're obviously day to day, it's not necessarily like the discussion of like, hey, use this when you're in this firefight, but hopefully at some point I like to think like I'm training them for skills to get through this schoolhouse and to be better aviators and get the platform and the track that they want. But at some point when push comes to shove, like they're hopefully taking these skills and building it into their routine so that they can be, increase their lethality and, come home safe. So necessity at first didn't choose, wouldn't have chosen to come into the military, but it's awesome. It's super rewarding. I think from like lifestyle, like a lifestyle perspective, it's very different than sport. Sport, you're going to be traveling a ton. You're going to be on the road a ton. And that's great. And that's awesome if you can do that. But I got a wife and baby now. So traveling, they get for like a minor league baseball team, I think it's eight off days out of the month. And you kind of choose those off days, but otherwise, like you're at the facility or you're at a different thing. So there's pros to being in the military from just like a lifestyle, like you're going to be home at, 4 or 5 every day, unless there's a long training exercise, something like that, but theoretically, and have your weekends off. So from here, like I plan on staying within the military, for the time being. I think, next step would be some type of special operations unit, working into that. And then I think eventually down the road, I'd like to get back into professional sport, just because, that was my original passion. But I think for now, like I see myself staying within the military setting for quite a bit of time.
I when I went to ASP for the first time my senior year of college, I I knew I wanted to work with military. I've since high school I have said like I'll do law or I'll do physical therapy or something, but it was always with the military. My dad was in the Air Force, and so for me, it was kind of like a family, like I wasn't gonna follow in my dad's footsteps in terms of being well, I thought about going to the Air Force Academy actually, just being in the military wasn't for me. Um, and so this was another way to do that and to feel like I was serving those who were serving our country. And so that was something why I wanted to work with the military, was because and kind of similarly to how Matt said, it's like it just feels like what you're doing has so much value when you see like what they truly go through to be able to be in the armed forces. And so I think being able to be in a position where you can help people who are potentially putting their lives at risk is something that it makes our job feel really rewarding. And not that working with athletics wouldn't. I think that it does feel that way, but I think once you start working with people in the military and you see how much they need it and how much of an impact it can make for them, it really does make you connect and feel like more driven to continue to be a resource for them. And I think in terms of aspirations, in or out of this setting, right now I'm working with my team to kind of build some opportunities for me to help build curriculum for the company. That's something where the company does extend opportunities to do that quite often, where they say, we have this type of curriculum we kind of want to develop, who has a passion for that. And then they get teams together from a bunch of different sites to work on it. And so if it's something you're passionate about, you can work on it. It could be anywhere from people who are really into neuroscience, and they can say like, oh, we're going to get this together. So people meet and talk about that. And so right now, kind of within the company is just building curriculum. I think eventually I'm thinking about going toward more clinical mental health counseling, just because, as I kind of said, I've really just found a passion in working with the people themselves and giving them kind of that, I don't want to say safe space, but it truly does end up being where they really appreciate having people who care about their lives. And so being able to be that space for them has kind of been a route that I want to continue kind of looking into and seeing what I can do more in that realm as well.
Like Matt, I had no interest in the military actually at all. I said to myself I was going to work in college athletics, but ultimately I wanted to work with the MLB. I am Dominican, so it's just like was my calling, I thought. So I when I got out of grad school again, like it's right when COVID hit, it was my last semester. So I moved back home and I was applying and I interviewed for a couple MLB teams, but it was like the same thing. Like you need experience, you need experience, you need experience. So I figured, where would I feel one the most uncomfortable? Because we know in these uncomfortable spaces where we grow the most, for me to be able to provide that experience to go to the MLB. So I looked into the military because I again had no interest and I had my own biases according to the like population. So when I went in, I was just like, I'll be here for a year, I'll get my experience and I'll dip out. Um, 2-ish years later, 2 months later, 2 years and 2 months later, I'm still here. Um, I I've learned so much, I've grown so much, but I love the population a lot. And I think that one of the things that really drew me into even wanting to work with the MLB was diversity, right? I wanted to work with people from different walks of life, different experiences, and seeing like, okay, what can I do here to be helpful and like be around the people, right? And like I started working with the military and I won't say like I'll never get back into athletics because it was a passion of mine, it still is. But right now, like I'm really enjoying my time with the military. I want to keep growing here. Even when I've looked into other opportunities, they still been within the military, like just figuring out what other populations do I want to work for. So like all our bases have different like populations they work with, different jobs that they do. So I also like we travel like not so much on this contract, but there's opportunities for travel. So I've done a whole lot. Like I've gone to JBLM where Matt used to be. And I've done a leadership course out there. I've gone to Germany and I did an MRT out there. So they called me in for a random military conference I knew nothing about just 2 weeks ago. So like there's different opportunities here for like you to one grow, but also like see the different populations within the military. And it's just been so rewarding, like both Taylor and Matt mentioned, like it's just being able to work with them, being able to like get them to be more open-minded and like find interest. And honestly, there has been such a shift in the military culture. It's not like 100% where it needs to be in terms of what we're doing, but like obviously the work that we've all done, no matter the contract we've been on, have been super impactful that the military keeps us around and keeps wanting to add more of us. So for right now, my aspirations is to stay in the military, maybe go Air Force, maybe go Special Forces. But and then maybe down the line working in athletics. But right now I'm very happy where I'm at.
That's great. Thank you so much. I think we'll be ending with any more additional questions. So maybe one or two, if anybody had the chance, opportunity to think of any, now is the time. So anybody would like to ask? Or just say hello, maybe. Maybe there's an old
I would like to say hello to everyone. Hi, Matt. Hi, Joe. Hi,
Hi,
Taylor.
Yana.
What's up?
What's up? It's so good to see you. And congratulations on your role. And I was listening in. Sounds great.
I'm so glad you got to join.
Yeah.
What are you up to?
What am I up to? I run the mental health program at Cal State Long Beach, the peer-to-peer program now. Jeremy
Nice.
works for us. Sierra works for us. Over here. Hi. And then I'm actually in November flying out to Kosovo because I got linked up with a Eastern European soccer club, like a youth soccer club. So I'll be doing sports psych stuff for them.
Hell yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, good for you.
Thanks. Oh my gosh, I miss you. I feel like we're in the sports psych lab again.
I know, take me back, honestly.
It's so good to see you. I'll let people ask real questions now.
do we have one in the chat, maybe?
I mean, I don't know who wants to answer. I just read it. Sorry. Hi, Genevieve. The process of, so it depends. It looks so, at least for Magellan, all of our interview process looks very different. I initially interviewed with John Metzler, then I got paired off with HR, and then I told her the areas I wanted to go to. I know for different contracts, like the one that Matt's on, you need a certain number of military years of experience before you can actually jump into like working with the Air Force or Special Forces. For us, it is like the chances of you getting in straight out of grad school is very like high. So if you look on LinkedIn, even if you follow Magellan Federal, or you just Google Master Resilience Trainer Performance Expert, a list of bases will come up. If there's one of your interests in location wise, like feel free to apply, but you still have the options of talking to Maria from HR about these are the locations I'm interested in. If something comes up, an opportunity comes up for an interview, she'll reach out. And you can start the application process like that. For me, I don't know if it was different for you, Taylor, at Fort Carson, but I had to do a presentation. It was the same when I interviewed for JBLM. I had to do like a 10 to 15-minute presentation, and like on any topic I wanted. They asked questions about our interest in the military XYZ, and then that's kind of how I got to Fort Moore. But I was very specific in the locations I wanted. But also feel free to reach out to us about locations, because I was very much telling Matt, like, this is where the region I want, which bases should I be looking at that are worth my while. And same thing when Taylor and I spoke, we talked very much about like, what are the good bases, where should I be looking? So definitely feel free to reach out to us, but you can definitely apply. There's always positions. LinkedIn has them, and the Magellan Federal website has them. Of course.
I would just
Yeah.
emphasize the location portion. I would reach out to one of three of us or anyone else that that's in the program to get an idea on where these bases are located, because I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, it's also, don't get discouraged if you don't see a location. Like if you talk to all of us and then you don't see one, sometimes you just will get lucky. I don't know why when I was applying for Carson happened to just have a bunch of spots, because I remember talking to Matt. It was the only one that he said, just look at all of them for Carson. It's like a pipe dream. So just, maybe, and then for whatever reason, right when I was applying, they'd had a lot of turnover and they had a couple spots open. So truly, like Joe said, reach out to Maria and look and see what they have available, but also Maria will help navigate that to see, and that we can kind of help you as well, so that you have a list prepared of like where your ideal would be, which are kind of alternatives that you'd be open to, and then you can bring that to them and they can work with you and what openings they might have that you could potentially interview for.
And then one last thing too, just because I didn't know, I think I said this both Joe and Taylor, like if you say you like apply, right, and they're like, oh, we only have Alaska. Maybe you love Alaska, but maybe they only have Alaska and you're like, no, I don't want to go there. They won't not give you the job. Like you won't have the opportunity to not interview for other places because you're like, hey, like love the job, don't love Alaska. Like don't feel pressured to take only the positions that are open, or only apply like when those positions are open. I'm pretty sure that like they'll just get you in the pipeline and be like, hey, these are the locations I was looking at. And then when those positions become available, they'll put you in that interview process, and like Joe and Taylor just outlined.
Thank you
They
so
will
much.
always push Alaska.
Is there somewhere where everyone, if possibly, can reach you? Maybe an email, or maybe LinkedIn, maybe to connect with you a little further?
I can put my email in the chat or something like that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
We can all.
I'll put my email in the chat as well. I don't want to say don't reach out to me on LinkedIn. I just might not see it for months. I just don't use my LinkedIn often, and I've had people that messaged me, it's students that I feel badly that I don't, if I don't read it, it's not because I don't want to help you. But I'd say to email me.
Yeah,
Thank
I'll put my email on the group chat, and then LinkedIn, I'm always on that thing, like if it's Instagram. So reach out to me on LinkedIn too, if that works.
Okay. Any other questions from the attendees? Right. Okay. I think it looks like that's everybody, all the questions, I think. Okay. Just a quick club announcement. We can move to the last slide. Okay. So yeah, we have a club event coming up on November 1st, just Ultimate Frisbee from 11 to 12 on the soccer field by the track and Horn Center. We are also having another guest speaker, Ardran Carr, who is an athletic counselor at the University of Michigan. You won't want to miss out on that. So if you guys it's all the information will be on our Beach Sync and our Instagram if you don't follow that already. And think that concludes everything. Again, special thank you for the speakers. Appreciate everything for being so open and knowledgeable. And we just ask if the board members and the panelists as well, if they could just stay a little longer just to chop it up a little bit further. We surely appreciate that. So thank you so much for everybody who attended. Thank you so much and hope to see you at our next event.
Thanks for having us. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Okay, I think we can stop recording now, Sarah.
Okay.